you wanna do the right thing, but you don't know where to start. You wanna hear your voice ring, but you can't find your part. You wanna feel real special, but you're afraid to be strange. Yeah, you wish this was different, but you don't wanna change.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the sixth installment of the Ask Our Vet series. My name is Dr. Chris, and I'm coming to you live from the Earth Animal Studios. I thought we'd lead in with some music. We started that last week. It seems to be a good way to kick it off. This would be the second weekend of Jazz Fest. Actually, I would currently be there, if not for our current circumstances. So I thought we'd lead in with a little Anders Osborne from New Orleans today. Hope you guys can hear it okay. It's a good way to start. I hope everybody is doing well. Another week of being inside, and like we said, it's working. So we do see some light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to keep doing what we're doing. I know it's challenging and I know it's frustrating, and we all have our days, right? The weather has not been great. We've had a couple of good days, but it's been interdispersed with a lot of kind of crummy, dull, drizzly, cold, rainy days. So I know that also doesn't make things easy. I think it's supposed to be nice this weekend, so hopefully everyone can get out and still social distance, but get out and get some sunshine on their face and, walk their dog and just try to enjoy the weekend. And Cinco de Mayo is coming up, and our numbers are going down, so I think that's good. I think today we're going to do another update on COVID. Seems like every week, right? Every week I say there's new developments, but there is, and I'm sure most of you are aware of it, but we'll talk about it. We're also going to do first aid kits, home first aid kits for pets today. So we'll talk about just some things that I think you should have just set aside in a little first aid kit, just in case that, again, we talk about the fact that the only predictable thing about animals is how unpredictable they are oftentimes, right? So I think it's always good to have a few things that could get you out of a short bind and help you, in case of something going on with your pet at home, can help you temporarily, alleviate the situation to where either you can get to the veterinarian or get on the phone with somebody. So I just have a few things we want to talk about there. Anyway, let's talk about the latest development with COVID and your pets. So most of you probably have heard because of the national news, but Winston the Pug in North Carolina did test positive for the SARS-CoV-2, the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. He lived with a family that multiple family members were positive. They tested the family members, and then I believe down at Duke, they tested Winston, and Winston came up positive for the virus. What they do feel is, so he would be the first dog now. We've had the two cats in upstate New York that we spoke about last week, and now we have the dog. And what they did say is they said that the virus numbers that they got in this dog were very low. So they do not believe that this dog would be a vector to transmit the disease. And the other good news, like we talked about with the cats and with the tigers, so now you've seen the progression. We've had the tigers at the Bronx Zoo, and then the cats in upstate New York, and then Winston the Pug. Is that the good news, the silver lining in all of that was that the animals all had mild respiratory signs that really resolved relatively quickly, and and the pets showed minimal signs of illness. So that is good. We just have to keep monitoring it. And we've been building throughout this series and talking, first we were talking about social distancing from people and having people making sure that if you leash walk you're outside leash walking your dog, we didn't want people petting your dog because your dog could potentially act, just like a surface, right? That if someone coughed in their hands and touched your dog and then you touched your dog, you could pick it up that way. Well, now it's so nothing has changed on what we've been talking about as far as the social distancing thing and keeping your pets away from other people, except the implications are a little bit different. Okay. And I think we had and I'll talk about a question that someone had submitted, but one of the things, the only thing I think that now has changed since the cats and with the dog, and we were already talking about this, is if you feel that you're sick or that you're either diagnosed with COVID or you feel like you do have it and you're just sheltering in place, it's very important that you then you quarantine yourself not only from other family members and friends, but from your pets. Okay. Now, if you live alone and you have an animal that you have to take care of, you just have to just practice everything with an absolute abundance of caution. Okay. Which is constant hand washing when you're going to feed them, when you're going to touch them, when you're going to let them out. You need to, wash before and after, wear a mask around them, and just do everything you can to, quarantine yourself as much as possible. But if during those times, if one of the other family members, while you're quarantining away from them, can take care of them, that would be ideal. And I think, obviously there's going to be more of this to come. We're learning with this. I mean, they're learning about this virus in people every day, every hour, every week. So we're going to learn more and more. And this is probably not the last case we're going to hear about. It's probably not the last information that's going to come through about it. And however, it's again, silver lining things, right? That these animals are not getting very sick at this point from the virus. And it does not look like they can be vectors, meaning that they can contract it and then spread it back to people. That may change. We don't know that. But right now, with the information we have, it seems like that's not something that's going on currently. So now what I wanted to do before we get into our talk on first aid kits, I did want to do, remember last week we did it was the first time I did my Earth Animal of the Week, and we were talking about Waffles the pig. So this week I'm going to be a little bit selfish with my Earth Animal of the Week, and I am going to nominate, and my Earth Animal of the Week is my dog, Monty. Monty turned 13 this week. He's been a big part of our family for 13 years, and he's had some pretty significant health problems over the last couple years. And not only has he dealt with them like a champ, but he just still acts like a puppy and just loves everybody, loves the family, loves other dogs, loves cats. Just a really, really good, just a great member of our family. So I won't do this all the time, but I just thought I'd give a shout out. And oh, by the way, his sister down in South Carolina, Mona, it was her birthday as well. So happy birthday, Mona. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Angel, for the shout out to Monty. He's a great guy. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about what we want to talk about this week, right? We want to talk about first aid kits. And so the first thing that I want to say about this is, it's really important that when we talk about this first aid, that you realize that this is not in lieu of seeking medical care. This is just having an emergency kit at home and the goal is as a stopgap, either to get somebody on the phone or to be able to, in the case of a cut, we'll talk about that, where you can apply something to it and then bring your animal to a veterinarian. So, you can minimize bleeding and things like that. And there's several things we'll talk about, several instances, and I'll just kind of, I'll give you, with each thing, potentially what you can use them for. All right. So let's see, what's our list? All right. First thing that I think is a must in your first aid kit. And I just, I have a little example of a first aid kit here. So you see it, there we go. But it really is just anything you can have it in where everybody in the house knows where it is. It's in a closet, in a cabinet, somewhere that it's proximal where everyone can get to it. And we have, we as well have one of these at home. So the first thing is a pair of tweezers. Okay. And these are important for a couple reasons. One is, obviously for the obvious things like a small sliver in the pad from the deck, or something that was stuck in the skin that you can pull out, any sort of sliver. The other thing, they can also act like you can grab ticks with these. Okay. And one of the ways that the way to approach removing a tick is to go down where the tick is in the body into the skin. You want to part the hair and you want to go down. Okay. And right where the head of the tick meets the skin, you want to grab it right at the skin and pull straight out. Okay. Now you can also get a dedicated tick puller. They have them at pet stores. You can get them online, and that obviously works well too. It just slides under the tick and over it and pulls it out that way. Similar principle. But if we're talking about a kit like this, the tweezers will do multiple things. You obviously don't have unlimited room in it. So it does, act as, help you in a couple ways. All right. The next thing, various gauze pads, some tape, and some soft roll bandage material. Okay. So this is called vet wrap. This is something that we get. You'll see veterinarians use this all the time. It's one of our favorite things. And the reason it is because it's soft and it's elastic. Okay. So this is great, and it sticks on itself. All right. And so if you have a cut if you have a cut pad or something like that, that you are then you're gonna go to the veterinarian to evaluate, do you need stitches? Do they need a bigger bandage? Do they need something else? This is a great way to bide your time. The other thing that I like, because it's stretchy, as opposed to, and we'll get to this, is having some tape, is you never want to use a hard tape around an extremity in an animal. So you don't want to tightly wrap anything that doesn't have give on it, because it can cut the circulation off. All right. So that's very important. I would always use, and the tape is important. We'll get to that again, but having some gauze or having a Telfa pad, okay, a non-adherent pad, you can place that on the cut, and then you can wrap it around the foot. And then again, call your veterinarian and get to the veterinarian. All right. Tape is something that you would use if it was up on a side or where you could just temporarily tape over the area, just tape one of the nonstick pads on it and tape it on it, just to minimize it being exposed, minimize some bleeding as you're transporting your animal to go get medical attention. All right. So again, no tape on the extremities, right? But it's always good if it's somewhere else on the body. And I really do like the stretchy, and you can get, this doesn't have to come from a veterinary supply. You can get this, they call it Coflex, or you can also get this they make this in a human form, which you can use on animals, the same things, you can get it in pharmacies. Okay. So I do like this as well. All right. The other thing that I think is important, and the other thing I really love to have at home, is eye wash. Okay. You can get this in any pharmacy. It's just purified water, but if something were to get in your pet's eyes, or they were poked, or they had some debris in it, you can always literally just gently with this rinse their eye out to rinse out any of the debris that's in there. All right. And again, it's non-chemical, it's purified water. It cannot hurt them. And I think it is something that is great to have at home. One of the other things that I think is important to have in your kit is just some Benadryl. All right. And we'll talk about dosages a little bit in a minute, but Benadryl is important for a number of things. We see one of the most common things we see this time of year, or going into the summer, is someone's pet, someone's dog that runs outside, goes outside to go to the bathroom, goes out in their backyard. They come in, they're, scratching at their head a little bit. Minutes later, their eyes start to blow up. So they're either stung or bit by something, and they're having a allergic reaction. So two things about that. One is, it's never something to play around with at home, to just wait out or see or watch and see if time will cure it, because obviously if they're having an allergic reaction, any swelling can turn into throat swelling, things like that. So it's one of the things, as long as it's minor, you can always give some Benadryl. And normally your kind of max dose on Benadryl is 1 milligram per pound. So Benadryl comes, and we're always talking plain Benadryl, not Benadryl, cold and sun, nothing else but plain diphenhydramine, normal Benadryl. And so they come in 25 milligram tablets. So, if you have a 30-pound dog, they would take 1 tablet. All right. If you have a small dog, you have to break up the tablets. If you have a dog that's 6-8 pounds, you might have to break it up into quarters. Okay. So just about 1 milligram per pound. And you want to kind of look that up. And you can also ask your veterinarian in what your dose of Benadryl would be for your dog, so ahead of time, and you can just record that in the kit. And that way you'll know it. And I think that's probably a good way to go about it. All right, let's see. Next, I think always having a set of gloves at home, all right, in the kit, just in case you have something dirty or there's a wound and you're cleaning it. It's always good. You never know what's on that, so you want to just take precautions. Obviously, wash your hands, put the gloves on, and make sure that you're not touching that area with your bare hands. The other thing that I think is a great thing to have in a kit is some sort of triple antibiotic: Neosporin, bacitracin. This has neomycin and polymyxin in it, but it's any of those triple antibiotics, because small, tiny little scrapes of the wounds, it really can do wonders, and just to again cover them and protect them. Here's something that I feel pretty strongly about. It's I've always felt strongly about it, but we had an incident in our house that I'll tell you about that without these scissors, we would have had a problem. I really, it's important to have a set of scissors at home. And one of the reasons why I'm showing you these scissors is I do like these bandage scissors, right? Because they have that the flat back so that you run that flat back against the skin so that you don't cut. You don't want to obviously make anything worse. These can come in handy for a variety of reasons, but I'll tell you what happened at our house that was really scary. We have it's a lot of you know we have two rescues that we've gotten. Sophie we got 2 years ago. Sadie we got just about 8 months ago now, 6 months ago, and they play constantly. They love each other. They play constantly. Well, about, I would think, maybe 3 months ago, they were playing together and Sadie got her mouth caught in Sophie's collar. And when they did, they started to panic and she twisted the collar on Sophie's neck. And the collar was so tight that you couldn't unbuckle it. So literally they were stuck together. They were choking. It was very obviously extremely stressful. And without a pair of these scissors, I don't know what would have happened, but we were able to cut the vinyl collar off using these scissors and just avoid an absolute travesty. So now more than ever, I think these are a great thing. And you can get these you can get these in various forms in most pharmacies. So I think these are something else that's good to have. Also having some sort of antiseptic wipe cleaner. This is a this is an alcohol one, povidone iodine, something else just to clean a wound. Okay, if you have a dirty wound, if they cut and you want to clean it, if they have a small cut in their pad and you want to then clean it before you apply the little wrap with the gauze, I think that's always good because any debris that you can clean out of it or anything that you can, any way to prevent the potential for infection, I think is a really good idea. Okay, so I think that works out really well as well. The other thing is, and anybody that's ever tried to trim their pet's nails and what they say quick them, which is cut it a little too short where you hit the vessel in there, is styptic powder is also a great thing to have at home. Now, if you don't have styptic powder, there's a couple things at home that you absolutely can use. All right. Cornstarch generally works really well. It does not burn. It doesn't hurt them. You can pack it up in there. You may have to do it a couple times, but that's something that works well. And I don't know anybody else. There's another that's ever used, and you can use an old bar of soap, all right, because it's soft and you can actually press their nail into it. And oftentimes that will also put a little plug in that. But if you can, again, you can get it online, little styptic powder, because this also, not only does this have styptic in it, but it also has benzocaine in it. So it also numbs the end because they do have a nerve in there. So it's a little obviously sensitive. Cotton swabs, something that everybody has at home anyway. I've got the longer ones here, but any sort of cotton swabs work. You can use these to apply any of the triple antibiotic to a small area. There's a variety of uses for them. So I think that's something else that's good to have in those kits and have them on the ready. I also think if everyone can is have a dedicated thermometer for their pets at home. One of the keys to the thermometer that you should pick, right, is it's very important to have a soft, not a glass one, a very soft tip one, because as you know, they jump around, they move around, and you don't want to hurt them. The one thing that a lot of people don't know is that pets normal temperatures run, because of their metabolisms and everything else, they run a lot higher. So dogs and cats run between 99.5 and 102.5. So I get phone calls a lot that people say, my dog has a fever, its temperature is 101 or it's 100, and that's a perfectly normal temperature. So that's always important to remember too. It's always important to remember that we have that range. So 99.5 to 102.5, and they can fall anywhere in that and still be normal. Two more things, obviously, just some, even if you have other people doing your dog's nails, just to have a nail trimmer at home, I think is important. You never know if they're going to just break the tip that's not near the quick that you can just clip off, or if they all of a sudden you notice it's a weekend and their dew claws is very sharp and long and you just can tip that. I think it's always good to have a pair at home, even if you don't plan on using them. I think it's good in a pinch to have them. All right. Obviously, too, what you want to have in your kit is your local emergency veterinarian number, right? Your primary veterinarian number, which a lot of you already have in your phone. And the other one that's important is ASPCA has a poison control line. And that number's right online. You can look it up. And I think that is very important to have. And one of the reasons is what I'm going to talk to you about. Something else that I think you should have in your kit at home is some hydrogen peroxide. Okay. And this is for dual purposes. Again, you can use it topically on the cotton balls that you'll have in your kit. All right. To clean a wound, cleanse a wound. But also it can be used to initiate vomiting in pets that have eaten something potentially toxic. Now, very important. You always want to call poison control before you initiate vomiting with anything. If it's a toy or some foreign body, you always want to talk to your veterinarian before you do anything. But if it's because there are certain things that you would not want them to throw up with, certain poisons that you would never, toxins that they ate that you would not want to initiate vomiting, and certainly foreign bodies and things because they can get them stuck. So never initiate vomiting without talking either to poison control or your veterinarian, or at least the emergency veterinarian, before you would even do that at home. Okay. But it is good to have. It is really good to have on hand. I think that's about it for the kit. I think if you have those things, you're covered for most things. Obviously, there's always, there's a saying that pets don't read the books, right? And they don't. And there's, I see new things and new ways for animals to get in trouble, including my own. I think last week when I got home after we did it and we were talking about chew safety and everything, my daughter told me when I came in that just as I was talking about my dog who loves to get into things and she told me that at that exact time she was chewing a pair of my glasses. I told her she should have wrote in and let us know. But so you just have to, you never know, and you just have to be hyper vigilant and just looking around. But it is nice to have this kit because you can potentially alleviate a situation that gives you more time and just better outcome if you have to, get someone. So I think it's a really good thing to have. All right. So if anybody has any questions, we'll certainly take them now. We did have a question from Jill who wrote in before the broadcast about CDC talking about social distancing in pets. So it really just, Jill, it goes back to what we were talking about whereas before, when really they had no evidence that pets could contract the CoV-2 virus, or, then it was, snuggle on them. If you're sick, you sit with them, things like that. I think basically what it is now is that you just have to, you approach everything like you do right now in your whole life with just an abundance of caution. And we want to, if you feel like you might have it or you have it, you have to social distance as much as you can from your pets because you don't want to transmit it to them. And again, we have very few confirmed cases. This is really with an abundance of caution, but we want to make sure that we take every precaution necessary. And a lot of times it is overabundance, but I think that's important. I think if we all live our lives like that, for the foreseeable future here, it's really going to make a difference in the outcome of all of our lives. So I think it's important. All right, thanks for that question, Jill. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, here we go. Mine aren't scrolling, so I have to come down here. Hold on one second. And so Anne says liquid Benadryl works well for tiny dogs. And that's a good point. One of the things that you have to be careful with liquid Benadryl is oftentimes it won't hurt them, but what it can do is it does numb their tongue a little bit. So small dogs can also drool after you give them liquid Benadryl. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't mention it. But if they're okay with pills, you can cut up a Benadryl tablet as well. But that's a good point. You're welcome, Jill. Thanks for writing in. Michael doesn't think my glasses are prescription. Well, I wore these for two reasons. One, I'm tired of squinting at the screen. I've heard that I'm really squinting to read it, so I figured I'd put these on. I also think they really accentuate my eyebrows, so I figure why not? Oh, Stefan, you don't think that they're prescription either? You think that I just found these glasses on someone's desk in the office, and I just wanted to try it for a week. But so Nora has a question that would you assume that COVID would be transmittable between pets? I'll tell you why I would. Now, again, they have not said that definitively, but I'll tell you why I would. The tiger that at the Bronx Zoo that came down with the COVID, it actually went through the pride and even into some lions. So there's a couple possibilities there. One is one of the zookeepers that had it, that was feeding them, transmitted it to all of them, or it went through them. They transmitted it to each other. But I think that it's definitely possible. I don't think they know that definitively, but I think it's something that is, I think we'll know that down the road, but I think it is definitely possible. Angel's talking about having Pepcid at home in her med kit. Yep, certainly for Angel with Hendrix, Angel, that is definitely something good for him. It's as a spot treatment sometimes, depending, I think some people could use it. I think you and I have talked about that. We know Hendrix, so we know for him that works. Some people, sometimes if you have a pet that has a gastrointestinal, something cropping up, you don't know what the underlying cause is. So while it's a good point, Angel, I think you have to be careful about giving meds like that because you don't necessarily know what the underlying cause is. And sometimes you can mask things, or sometimes it's not the right, it's not the right treatment. All right, Jill, you don't like the beard? I know. It's you and most people, but we're going to keep it, I think, till they, well, at least for a little while. We'll see. Michael thinks I might be living at the office. Maybe. Ed Shannon. Now, if we're starting to get into band questions, we've got a pet question, but getting back to you, Ed, I'm going to reserve my private opinion on that. But I definitely, and I will let you know, on the phone this weekend, what I have to think about that one, because that's a tough call. But anyway, there are, we'll talk about that later. Candace. Hi, Dr. Chris. Dealing with some long puppy nails over here, and Bronson is slipping and sliding. What can I do during this time? He got caught in the rug and it was scary. Thank you. So, Candace, I think, while most veterinary offices now are not doing things like routines like nail trims and things just to limit the amount of people, obviously, that are coming in, the staff's being exposed to, it's certainly if an animal, long nails can become a medical situation. Obviously, like Bronson, with he's slipping and sliding, we don't want him to hurt himself. So in that case, if they were getting to the point where they were inhibiting his walking, or or he was really slipping around, or they were starting to grow around and maybe, injuring the pads, I think that would be something that we would have to do, because we don't want him to, get injured by that. So that becomes, that goes from just a routine nail trimming to something that I think is necessary. So that's something that we should talk about and we should do. All right. I hope you're doing well, Gilda. I'm going to forget about the beard comment. I'll read this one. Not a bad idea to have Science Diet AD or similar in your kit, and maybe even unflavored Pedialyte. Well, again, certainly, I mean, there are different companies that make these recovery formulas. So I think, in a pinch, as far as animals, inappetence or not eating. But again, what you have to, and those are things that if they're not eating, then there's something underlying. So I think that's always good to discuss with a veterinary professional, right? Even though, Gilda, you know a lot, a ton. But I think it's always good. Some people may, if they're not eating, usually there's an underlying cause. And I think it's good to kind of find that out before you start doing certain things. And certainly the unfavored Pedialyte is something that they can have, and, gives them electrolytes. But again, it's something that I think, you want to discuss with your veterinary professional, and then, maybe they're seen, and then you develop a program for them. All right. Steffi. Hi, DK. If you have a pet in the house, should you have a notification sticker on a window to let first responders know they are there, especially if there's a fire? Sorry if you already said this, as I came late to the party. So actually, you know what, Steffi, we covered that a couple of weeks ago. It's a good point, and definitely it's topical if we're talking about emergency kits. But yes, you should have something on your window notification with the pets that you have in there. And so the first responders that come there know, and that's a good point. Yep. Jill, so could she use sandpaper? Okay, this is going back to the other ones. Okay, could she use sandpaper to trim back her puppy's nails? You could, obviously depending on the grit size of it, you don't want it too abrasive. And that's the same principle as people that trim their nails with, trim their pets' nails with, a Dremel tool and things like that, with the fine, tip. You can sometimes when they're that long though, Jill, it's very hard to get them back to a level where they are. It takes a long time. Some of the animals that aren't used to that, animals let you do what they're used to, and sometimes just a different approach. But you could certainly dull out a very sharp tip with that. And just to buy yourself time. So that's a good point. Yeah, no, Jill, the good point. Yeah, that was definitely a good point. I mean, there's always times where, it's Murphy's Law, right? Things tend to happen in the middle of the night, or the middle of the night on a Saturday night, or sometime when a lot of places are closed. So I think that, yeah, I mean, it's to have a few things like that, and to have that unflavored Pedialyte, or have some recovery formula food is certainly not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, no, I understand. Maureen, all right, Maureen, do you have to finish all of the prednisone medicine after 2.5 pills 5 days, half a pill 5 days? So obviously, Maureen, it depends on the situation. It depends on what the animal's on it for. It depends on, one of the things I will say, if any animals, and one thing I will say about prednisone is used for certain things and is necessary in certain things. You always have to use prednisone very judiciously. But it depends on what they're on it for and how long they're on it. You always taper it. You don't stop it. So, might be, something, obviously you have a question, you can call me at the office or call Carol. But I think one of the keys of that is, if you're on something like that, then it depends on why you're on it and their response to it, but you always taper it. All right. Always. All right. Catherine, what about expired pills? Do they really lose their efficacy? Yeah, look, dates are there for a reason. And yes, I mean, they do. How long, again, will depend on the medication. It will depend on how long they have been obviously expired. But yeah, they do over time lose their efficacy. Do they lose it the day that they expire? No, but there's a reason why they put that. There's a reason why they have those dates on medication. So it is good to follow those. All right, Carl. My 18-month-old puppy is going for his distemper parvo shots. The technician will be bringing him into the office. Although precautions will be taken, would it be okay for me to spray his coat with hydrogen peroxide when he leaves the office in case he was exposed to the COVID-19 by handling? Okay, so this is a really good question, Carl, because we've been getting a lot of these questions, okay? And what can we do? And some people are like, can we put, can we use, people were even talking about using other chemicals, things like that. And this is what I would say. What we're recommending is, now I will tell you that our office and the other veterinary offices, the husbandry that we're practicing, and just it's you should see, the extent to which we're going. And so in that regard, that's a good thing. However, we also recommend that certainly, if when you get them back, if you want to, again, with abundance of caution, want to practice, as much cleanliness as we can, we really what we're recommending is sensitive baby wipes and things, and just wiping down their coat. Okay, anything that is shortly settled on there, that should help. I think you have to be careful with spraying things. One of the things, as well as, if you do spray hydrogen peroxide on them, if they're a dark dog, oftentimes it will bleach out their tips of their coat. It looks like they went for went to the spa and had a glazing done on. We've had people use that on, as anti, skunk bath, and on like black labs that then come out with frosted tips. But you don't want to put a lot of that on their coat as well, because they can then go and lick that. And remember what we were talking about with hydrogen peroxide, it can make them vomit. So I think that you're probably better off literally just using a wipe on them, baby wipe, wiping them down, then obviously disinfecting yourself as well. And, in most cases that should be good. But that's a really good question, a very topical question. Hi, Pamela. So Pamela, you always have some flagyl in the house. Yes. And that's done well for you. Again, that's because you know what you're using it for, and you've had history with knowing exactly what your animals are. I think one of the things that we always want to do is always be under the care of a veterinarian when we have any sort of drugs that we have that have been for our pets in the house. one of the things that you don't want to do is fall into the trap where if you have medication for one of your pets and your other pet has not been diagnosed with the same thing, or you have not used a medication or a topical medication on your other pet, if you see a symptom, just thinking, okay, well, this must be the same thing, and then using it, because one, it may not be, it very well may not be. And two, medications when used the wrong way can harm an animal. Okay. So that's really important. And, for instance, triple antibiotics for eyes. Okay. They come in various different types. You have drops and you have ointment, but they also come in their antibiotics, and then they have antibiotics with steroids in them. All right. And when an animal has conjunctivitis, you'll see oftentimes when they go and we stain their eyes because we want to make sure they don't have a scratch on their eye. If they have a scratch on their eye, you absolutely cannot use steroids. And I've had people sometimes at home that their animal, they had one animal that had conjunctivitis, no scratch on their eye, use a topical that had a steroid in it. The animal went, it's 7 to 10 days. It resolved, and then they had it on their shelf, and 6 months later, their other animal cropped up with a similar looking situation, and then they used it, and the situation got much worse because that animal had pawed its eye and scratched it. So I think one of the take homes is you should never just assume that if it was okay for one of your pets, it's going to be okay for the other ones without talking to the doctor. I think that is key. So let's see. It looks like anybody else have any other questions while we're here? All right, guys. Here's the last thing we want to talk about. Okay, we're going to do our spot spotlight of the week, and our spot spotlight this week. Can everyone see that? Is North Point Pets and Company in Cheshire, Connecticut. It's a locally owned store and resource center in Cheshire, Connecticut, and they focus on. I hope everyone can see that. They focus on pet nutrition and behavioral well-being. I've met the owner, Nikki, she's built this wonderful business. She's absolutely great. And they focus on the relationship between the pet parent and their animal. And one of the great things that I love about Nikki and her store is that they treat each pet individually for their needs, they research for their care, for their feeding and overall nutrition. So they really pay individual attention, and it's great. And she has a vast amount of knowledge. They've grown to be a working dog resource nationally. And so you guys should really check out, if you haven't been there and you're in that area, absolutely check them out. They really, really know what they're doing. They're great. And they support canine officers all over with training and adoption events. And they're very, very active in that sector. Okay. So last thing, so the first person that calls with the code word to North Points is going to get a $50 gift certificate. All right. So sticking with the Cinco de Mayo theme, password this week is, let me see it, chimichanga. I think I said it wrong. But anyway, that's what it is. All right. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Get out, get some sun, and we'll be back next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about flea and tick prevention. All right? All right. Let's do a little music to get out of here with, I think. All right, everybody. This is Steve Winwood. I saw Steve Winwood at Jazz Fest probably 8 years ago. Just kind of a little uplifting song for this week. And everyone get out, get some sun. All right? Everyone stay safe, be well. See you here next week. Bye.